Welcome to UBI Unplugged, breaking down the future of income.
All right, let's see if we can actually break something down today. I remain skeptical.
Well, hopefully we can move past skepticism into some constructive analysis. Today we're tackling a big one, UBI and the future of disaster relief in a climate-changed world.
Exactly. It's becoming increasingly clear that the old ways of disaster relief aren't cutting it, especially with the frequency and intensity of climate-related disasters increasing. We need to rethink the whole system.
Rethink is putting it mildly. The current system is a system in name only. It's a reactive mess, full of bureaucracy and delays. I mean, look at the stories coming out after every hurricane, every wildfire. People waiting weeks, months even, for help.
Absolutely. And the problem is that reactive approach is inherently unequal. The people who are best able to navigate the bureaucracy, who have the resources to front costs while waiting for reimbursement, they're the ones who recover fastest. UBI could level that playing field.
That's the core of it. A universal basic income provides a baseline of economic security before disaster strikes. People have a cushion, a safety net to fall back on. They're not starting from zero when the floodwaters recede or the fires die down.
Okay, I see the theoretical appeal. But where does the money come from? That's always the question, isn't it? We're talking about a universal income. That's a massive undertaking, and Trump's proposed budget cuts aren't exactly helping fund such a program.
That's a fair point. The Trump budget proposal, with its $163 billion in cuts to federal spending, does present a challenge. It highlights the administration's priorities, which don't seem to include bolstering social safety nets or preparing for climate change. Specifically targeting Department of Education, the Department of Health and Human Services, USAID, and the Environmental Protection Agency. All agencies that will become more critical.
Right, and that's why we need to frame UBI not just as a social program, but as a form of climate adaptation. Think about it. If people have a guaranteed income, they're more resilient in the face of climate shocks. They can afford to evacuate, to buy emergency supplies, to rebuild their lives. The cost of not having UBI in a climate change world will be far greater in the long run. What do you think, Otto?
I guess I can see it, but you are asking to do the thing the government is already struggling to do. A quote in the article says a Trump official stated, "We don't need a benefit hammock that keeps people out of the workforce." It sounds like Trump wants to cut funding for that type of income safety nets.
Yeah, that quote is deeply concerning. It reflects a fundamental misunderstanding of the purpose of social safety nets. It assumes that people are deliberately choosing to be unemployed, which is rarely the case, especially in the aftermath of a disaster. LIHEAP being cut would be devastating.
Exactly, and the fact that they're proposing to cut programs like LIHEAP while increasing defense spending, it shows a real disconnect from the needs of everyday Americans. It is important to ensure a smooth and equitable transition.
Okay, so let's say, hypothetically, we find a way to fund UBI. How does it actually work in practice during a disaster? Does everyone just get a check in the mail?
Not necessarily. There are different models for UBI implementation. In a disaster scenario, we could envision a system where the UBI payment is increased or accelerated to provide immediate relief. We could also explore using digital wallets or preloaded debit cards to ensure people have access to funds, even if traditional banking systems are disrupted.
Yes, and we can learn from existing disaster relief programs. FEMA, for example, already provides financial assistance to individuals and families. UBI could streamline that process, making it faster and more equitable. Plus, it can supplement existing insurances that take time to pay out.
FEMA, though, that's not exactly a shining example of efficiency, is it? I mean, we've all seen the reports of waste and mismanagement. How do we ensure that UBI doesn't fall into the same trap?
That's a crucial question. We need robust oversight and accountability mechanisms. We also need to invest in technology and infrastructure to ensure that the UBI system is secure and resistant to fraud. And this circles back to the USDA's current situation. They are paying people to leave their jobs, but within a day are hiring new people to fill those vacated spots. They are literally paying two people the same salary.
Right. We need to learn from the mistakes of the past. One way to do that is to design the UBI system with transparency in mind. Open data, public audits, and citizen oversight can help prevent waste and corruption. If DOGE has improper payments, then there is little chance of running a UBI scheme properly.
Okay, so what about the incentive to work? If people are getting a guaranteed income, won't they just stop working, especially after the disaster?
That's a common concern, but the evidence suggests otherwise. Studies on UBI pilot programs have shown that people don't just stop working. They may reduce their hours or change jobs, but they typically continue to participate in the workforce. And that actually helps, as they will be better prepared in future.
Yes. And even if some people do choose to work less, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It could free up time for caregiving, community involvement, or pursuing education and training. A society where people have more autonomy over their time and labor could be a more resilient and innovative society.
Okay, I'm still not entirely convinced, but I'm starting to see the potential benefits, especially in the context of climate change. But what about the political feasibility? Is there any real chance of UBI becoming a reality in the current political climate?
Exactly. We need to frame UBI not just as a left-wing idea, but as a pragmatic solution to the challenges of the 21st century, a way to reduce poverty, promote economic security, and build resilience in the face of climate change. In the long term, that is.
So let's talk about implementation on a grand scale. You are talking about massive restructuring and I imagine major tech infrastructure updates. Would that even be feasible given the government's track record on tech overhauls? Didn't something just come out about some automated payment system that was making errors?
Yeah, the article mentioned $334 million in improper payment requests due to flawed codes within some automated payment system. That's precisely the kind of thing that scares people and fuels skepticism about government efficiency. Any UBI program would need to be bulletproof in terms of security and accuracy.
That's right. It underscores the need for robust oversight and thorough testing before any large-scale implementation. We need to learn from those failures and ensure that the UBI system is designed with transparency and accountability in mind. Test, measure, iterate. This could take a long time.
And what about the potential for unintended consequences? Could UBI actually exacerbate existing inequalities or create new ones? Like, would landlords just raise rents to capture the extra income? Or would businesses lower wages knowing that people have a baseline income?
Those are valid concerns. We need to anticipate those potential consequences and design policies to mitigate them. Rent control, wage standards, and anti-price gouging measures could all be part of the solution. In the long run, this could be net benefit.
Yes, and we need to be prepared to adapt the UBI system as we learn more about its effects. UBI is not a silver bullet, but it is a tool that can be refined and improved over time. We need to be flexible and responsive to the needs of the people it's designed to serve.
All right, so let's say a major hurricane hits Florida tomorrow. How would UBI actually help in that specific scenario? Walk me through the steps.
Okay, so imagine everyone in Florida is already receiving a regular UBI payment. When the hurricane hits, the government could immediately increase that payment, let's say double it, to help people evacuate, buy supplies, and cover temporary housing costs. The payment could be delivered through digital wallets, preloaded debit cards, or even direct deposits to ensure people have access to funds quickly.
And because people already have a baseline of economic security, they're less likely to be forced to make desperate choices. They can afford to evacuate even if they don't have savings or insurance. They can afford to stay in a hotel or with family instead of being forced into crowded and potentially unsafe shelters. After the storm, the increased UBI payment can help them cover the costs of repairs, food, and other necessities while they wait for insurance claims or other forms of assistance.
Okay, that sounds good in theory. But what if the power grid is down? What if the internet is inaccessible? How do people access their digital wallets or debit cards then?
That's a critical point. We need to ensure that the UBI system is resilient even in the face of infrastructure failures. That could involve establishing emergency cash distribution centers, using satellite internet to restore connectivity, or even partnering with local businesses to provide goods and services in exchange for UBI credits.
And we need to invest in resilient infrastructure to begin with. Strengthening the power grid, building more robust communication networks, and developing decentralized energy systems can all help ensure that communities are better prepared for disasters, while also supporting a UBI.
Okay, so we're talking about a complete overhaul of the way we approach disaster relief. It's a massive undertaking, and it's going to require a lot of political will and financial resources. Is it really worth it?
I think it is, because the alternative is to continue down the same path, which is a path of increasing inequality, vulnerability, and suffering. Climate change is already here, and it's going to get worse. We need to be proactive and build a more resilient future, and UBI can be a key part of that effort. The longer it takes to enact such measures, the higher the risk and cost.
Absolutely. UBI is not just about disaster relief. It's about creating a more just and equitable society, a society where everyone has the opportunity to thrive regardless of their circumstances. And in a climate change world, that's more important than ever, especially considering the amount of tariff revenue coming in now due to import costs.
Speaking of tariffs, I saw something about Trump claiming that all that tariff money is going to be used to reduce taxes. Is that even remotely plausible?
Well, the article did mention that tariff revenue topped $17 billion in April, which is a significant increase. However, it also pointed out that it's still a relatively small amount compared to the national debt and overall government spending. I think it's unlikely that tariff revenue alone would be enough to significantly reduce taxes.
And even if it were, we need to be careful about how that money is used. Cutting taxes for the wealthier corporations would only exacerbate inequality and undermine the very goals that UBI is trying to achieve. Instead, we should be investing that revenue in programs that benefit everyone, like UBI, infrastructure, and education.
I still think the practical challenges are enormous. But I'll admit, you've given me something to think about. The idea of a proactive, equitable disaster response system is definitely appealing, especially compared to the current mess.
Exactly. This is a very complicated equation and requires continuous monitoring.
That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on UBI Unplugged. Keep thinking, keep questioning, and keep pushing for a better future.